Hello there YouTube, Eric McRae, Asparagus Party here, coming in with a video today to talk about an issue brought up by none other than Coryxkenshin, the famous YouTube content creator, who I did do a commentary on very recently. And the reason I wanted to share this discussion sort of on this channel is because it's actually quite relevant, being that it revolves around YouTube itself, the platform, around YouTube moderation and questions of the algorithms and AIs that get involved, as well as the human team involved. So normally I would section out videos of sort of a political or controversial kind of nature to my other channel, Truth Crusade, and deal with them there. But in this case, I'm going to let this one slide because after all, we are making a YouTube channel, so the discussion does affect us. So the backdrop of the story, what happened with Coryxkenshin is, being a YouTube content creator, does videos on gaming. He produced a lot of videos, and every so often he'll take a break, come back, take a break, come back. And recently he took a break from producing videos, came back some months later, and he gained a lot more traction. You could say his view count, his viewership increased drastically. And in a very conspicuous and suspicious way at this time, videos he produced previously, maybe months ago, at least one in question, got, you might say, flagged or tampered with a bit. They changed it from being something that could be viewed by children to something that was adult only. And now for some YouTubers that's not such a big deal. For me, I make a lot of my videos set to be viewed by adults only because I don't want to worry too much about the things I'm going to say. However, for YouTube entertainers like Cory and various others, it's important that they be able to reach that audience in terms of generating revenue from advertisements. But the thing came off as very suspicious. Now here's where it gets controversial. So the video that was in question, I think it was a gameplay video. There were others that had done the exact same game with the exact same scenes and general kind of content, who did not have their videos flagged as being inappropriate for children. Markiplier did not suffer this issue. And I think for some time Jacksepticeye did not. Cory talks about this in his video, and he obviously noticed this and became visibly upset and wanted more information from YouTube, what's going on. And now actually one of the theories he started to even posit in his videos, that maybe this was an occurrence of racism, being that he was the only, in this case the only black content creator he noticed who had this issue come up for his channel. So I wanted to talk about this because it's pretty big, and it gets bigger than that. So very interestingly, Jacksepticeye, who's familiar with Cory, saw his video and actually put his input and generally siding with Cory in this matter because he's been concerned himself. You see, Jacksepticeye is another big content creator doing gaming videos as a form of entertaining viewership and making an income. And he also has a girlfriend who does the same thing. And what ended up happening is that he's noticed that they're not all seemingly treated the same, content creators. That they don't receive the same protections against issues like these, because when people start tampering with your ability to be viewable by the audience you're trying to reach in searches and things like that, it can really cut down the profitability of your channel. It can really cut down the reach of your channel. And what normally happens is big YouTubers, guys like, you know, Markiplier, Coryxkenshin, Jacksepticeye, they all have people they have that are able to reach the YouTube team very quickly, being that their channels are so large, they have a lot of clout to them. But another problem that comes in with this is not every YouTube content creator has that level of clout. The newer people, the people with smaller channels, they can actually be flagged or have their channels tampered with effectively by either YouTube's moderation team or AI-based algorithms responding to flagging done by user complaints, which of course can be used nefariously, unfortunately. If you get a group that doesn't like a person for whatever reason over some personal conviction or something or another, they can just get together, flag the video, and if all that's handling it is an AI operating on basic filtration settings and basic assumptions made therein, you can literally get people's channels pulled off YouTube. You can get them effectively hindered in their reach, and this is something of a controversy that's even bigger than these YouTubers here, but it's really become a big issue. Now, it's got multiple segments to it. It's not just about the question of moderation and how the decision making is sort of carried out. The very fact that you've got AI and algorithms of filtration-based moderation involved make it more complicated for multiple reasons. So I don't know, and the reason this comes up is because I don't know always if a human is the one handling the reporting or the flagging of a video, or assessing the data or scanning the imagery to determine if it's adult content or not. And obviously adult here, not necessarily a reference to anything of a pornographic kind of sense, that's not it, but just content like you normally advise a child to watch, for example, the 1982 horror movie The Thing. You would not want clips of that to be viewed by somebody who's maybe 6 years old or 7-year-old, right? So these issues came up, and one of the big concerns with AI is it's often promoted by people. You know, there's absolutely a business behind AI. There are people who design AI, design algorithms, sell it to companies like YouTube as a ways of downsizing and not having to pay employees. And they always promote these things like they're so neutral and unbiased, and they'll clean up your system and remove troublesome people for you. And that's not really the case. The concept of a sort of politically neutral AI just picking on people who are really the bad ones of society, that's not really substantiated in reality. Actually, the AI and the algorithms, and this is such a danger in putting them in a system of moderation as your functional moderators, they are scripted and programmed by humans who have political, ideological attachments, loyalties, and agendas, and oftentimes want to promote one people group and hinder another, and things like that. And so Coryxkenshin's case, having had his video sort of messed with, he started asking the question, is this because he's black? Was he discriminated against? Or why did it only happen to him and then not happen to all the others, Mark, Jacksepticeye, and whoever else? Now, interestingly, it did happen to some others. I think it happened to Jacksepticeye a bit later, and then that brings up the question, okay, do you have like a moderator team? Because this kind of sounds like the thing that's more out of the mind of a human moderator than an AI to me, based on some sort of Coryxkenshin story about it as well, where they're kind of doing damage control. Okay, so maybe they make a bad call with Cory and then realize for whatever reason, oh, I let these guys slide, and now they start trying to block them too, to be like, oh, he's right, I was supposed to block them to cover their own rear. These kind of questions come up. But I want to say that this is not new to me. None of this is new to me. On my other channel, Truth Crusade, I deal with political issues, and recently here in Canada and in many other parts of the world, we had this massive controversy over the issue of COVID-19, COVID vaccines, restrictions. You had the freedom protests, and the crackdown of it by government, and the times where governments were even doing things that were kind of not in line with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, at least here in Canada. And what you noticed is people who had channels, and I could name someone, like for example, we had this YouTuber, Mr. Sunshine Baby, and he was out in these freedom protests covering it, just giving you unbiased coverage. And he was getting many views, hundreds of thousands of views at points. And then what seemed to be the case is that his channel got what we would call shadow banned, which means YouTube moderation wants to would rather delete your channel entirely and limit it, but because they would be kind of known that they're getting kind of political and biased and controlling, they sort of do it secretly by hindering your ability, your video visibility. And this is absolutely a kind of known thing that's been going on for some time, and it's happened in quite a few cases. So what seemed to happen is Mr. Sunshine's Baby's channel, at first it got sort of shadow banned. His view count suddenly went down inexplicably, and it was not a matter of viewership tags. For all intents and purposes, something was hindered there. And he kept having controversy. Later, his channel, they tried to even get him off YouTube. He deleted I think all his videos for a while, got off YouTube, got back on. And it's been kind of a sort of a massive controversy like this. Not just this, I have noticed when it comes to dealing with what might be seen as more politically conservative views, but especially religiously kind of really dedicated Christian kind of views, these things have been done again. So like you have a channel like Act 17 Apologetics, which will make videos of debates with, for example, Muslims, pointing out negative or contradictory things in the Quran. And of course that's fair because Muslims are equally able to make videos and rebuttal the Christians in those cases. But because a lot of political clout does tend to be held by the Islamic communities, and not all of them, and it is not to categorize anyone, I'm not looking to divide my own viewership here. I don't really care that much at all what your religious ideology is right now, but this is just something that actually happens. So you get a lot of disgruntled Muslims. They go start flagging the channel, reporting the channel, making false accusations, and YouTube's moderation team, because it already has sort of a mental conditioning in its place, a sort of what we call the woke conditioning, started really picking on Act 17 apologetics and sort of hindering what they were doing a lot. Just temporarily shutting down videos. Then David would have to repeal that. It would get repealed, and there'd be this push and pull where now people can make actually a fake report or something that's total nonsense, and the inclination of much of the moderation team was to go around with that, along with it, or either be in agreement with it when it wasn't true, and then even at times only reverse it when they realized they had no legal backing, where they're at risk with higher courts in the local lands where perhaps these servers are hosted, things like that. So actually YouTube having a bad moderation system and a questionable moderation team with its trust and safety board, this is not exactly new. It's surprising Cory's only had to deal with this so recently. And it is interesting because Cory asked the question, why is my channel different than those other guys who had their videos not restricted? And I could be wrong. Cory's guess is pretty plausible. It's not like racism went away. It's very possible that he might have been discriminated against for the color of his skin or something like that, but it very well could be that he was discriminated because of his Christian views. When you have such a strong radical anti-theistic sort of social atheist structure that kind of moderator structure, where they get caught with that kind of agenda, what we call, again, the woke agenda. It really is there. I hate to say it. When it comes to religions, they like to prop up Islam and put down Christianity and do certain things. And in this case, since they've already been picking on a lot of Christian channels, I'd posit it's very possible Coryxkenshin was discriminated against on a basis of his Christian views. Some desiring to limit that because, if Coryxkenshin has a big successful channel, it makes him look good. Then if he's putting biblical proverbs on his end scenes and saying he thanks God, it kind of makes God look good, which is a problem for you if you have a very strong anti-theistic agenda and are very obsessed with control and having people's minds formulate a certain way, outcome control. That's something I would posit as a possibility. However, I'd go to say that some people are very oversensitive on this, and it gets frustrating for me. I hope the viewership on my channel will be more mature. I get that there's been a lot of bad things done at point by Christians and by other people, so this wasn't about making it about the one people group or even my own possible bias or anything like that. Actually, it brings up the issue of moderation in general. That's the thing, because you know what? It's not always just the one people group. Some of you're not a Christian. You've never had your channel discriminated on a basis of Christian viewpoints. To you, this wouldn't be so alarming perhaps at first. Maybe it'd even seem like a good thing if you've dealt with some of the people bearing the title who are obviously less noble and more offensive for whatever reason, notwithstanding the debate of that. However, the thing is, the next day, it could be your channel if the basis of what's being discriminated against, why, is not very clear, or if it's just subject to people randomly flagging videos, or if it's just subject to political opinion. Because again, just like scientific theory, political opinion is often changing and morphing over time based on immigration demographics, and what's popular and permitted today might not be popular and permitted tomorrow. Your channel might not be something at risk of this kind of flagging and hindrances, hindering efforts, but tomorrow or in a week or in a month or in a year or 2 years, based on the direction the moderation goes, your channel could be at risk. And again, consider all the kind of control mechanisms. It's always the same people. For example, the people associated with transgender language mechanisms who want to enforce speech. So now imagine you made a video where you were doing a gaming video and you're an atheist for all intents and concerns. You believe in aliens created humans or something like that, or whatever you believe, but maybe you're not pro all that kind of sexual agenda of the modern culture, and you sort of are making a gaming video where you're gaming with your community, playing whatever on your Xbox, and you make one loose comment that you think people saying z, zers, and zis as pronouns to be pronounced and trying to enforce that is ridiculous, or you mock it or make fun of it, just one moment for like 5 seconds, and you come back the next day and your video's been flagged, your channel's been tampered with because this was apparently a no-no for the moderation team or the AI or algorithm. That's actually a massive issue and concern. And, we know that this does lead to a direction where eventually it's not just going to be people who are of these convictions that are kind of currently picked on. It does grow out later. Like we had a case with Twitter where even a major Islamic world leader who normally enjoy more propping up from the kind of ideology the CEOs of companies like Twitter and Instagram, etc., have been associated with. But in this case, he said something that was deemed as potentially violent or offensive against a anti-government movement in his own country, an Islamic world leader. and his account was either muted or deleted effectively, and this caused massive controversy for them in that moment. And now what we see is that as the moderators get more and more controlling in trying to portray this attitude of peace, safety, and security, they are often just interfering with allowing people to have a normal dialogue, kind of guilty of being a bit too weak at times, and it's very prone to make hostilities and conflicts worse, because when people feel they can't even voice out frustration or agitation against one group or another, sometimes that's just more pressure in the cooking pot, and it's more likely to feed these kind of explosive reactions of angry outbursts and such. But that's not all. Then you throw in AI, and it's several times more complicated. So again, AI is not, most of the time it's not neutral. These moderation-based AI and algorithms, they're following scripts that are often programmed by people who are on payrolls from people who, again, it's often these kind of woke political ideologists, these neo-Marxists, and their constant attempts to control speech keep getting imbued in a lot of these AI and algorithms. It's just getting a bit much. However, AI, why I keep saying AI is it's a whole nother question. So let me give you a hypothetical situation here. Say you had a neutral AI with no political bias. It's not a Marxist AI, it's not a Christian AI, it's not an Islamic AI. It's just a neutral AI who's going to try to keep adult content to adults, children content to children, and sort of be fair. And I want to be very clear, just like Jacksepticeye reassured in his video, I am not anti-moderation. If you took out moderation from YouTube, it's just going to become probably like the dark web. Pornography and gross things will be everywhere. There will be videos going to children of people raping people and eating them alive, and horrible things that have actually happened. I think that would be a nightmare. So I'm not pro anti-moderation, pro get rid of any moderation. I think that's foolish, but I'm pro for wise moderation. I'm pro for moderation not controlled by a ideological bias, and I'm pro for having humans in general doing our moderation, even though humans sometimes have the biases and are trouble. I'm not a fan of AI having our jobs outsourced to these things which may not even understand the issues at hand. So AI, it's such a question of, if you had a neutral one, okay, now you say you've designed a AI with no political bias, it's going to enforce moderation algorithms. Is it intelligent enough to understand the content? Is it intelligent enough to look at the imagery on a video recording screen and say, this is pornography, from this is not pornography, but something kind of racy? Is it able to say, this one goes off, this one's 18 plus, but it's not pornography? Is it able to see another video where it's like, this is violent, this is 16, 18 plus, but not viewable by 7-year-olds? Is it able to actually interpret the imagery, the sounds, and the content, the things being said, and control it in a way that's actually reasonable and educated? Or is it more likely to make kind of dumb, kind of not really well-developed decisions? And again, this question's coming up when we're looking at some of the art produced by AI, and we see and some things produced by AI, and it is getting very impressive, but then there's times where it's not interpreting the inputs very correctly and producing things that are less than impressive. So there is a level of inconsistency there, and it raises questions. So entering into this new technological age and this era where dystopian type people are really pushing a lot of agendas and moderation systems, I think what you have is you have a need of conversation. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Are you upset at me for talking about this, or are you in agreement that this is something that's a concern? And how do we bring this to light and kind of reclaim what we once had?